one of the dilemmas I see for a lot of B2B companies, and obviously this is your domain, is sort of what should they do on social, right? Should they be on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat? Do I need to be on TikTok, right? Do I need to be in all of these and sort of dip my feet in the water? Or do I just go on one and just do a really good job on one? And that seems to be a big dilemma for companies about which way do I go? How do you sort of consult and advise companies who ask that question?
So it's two questions I'll start with is what are your resources and where is your audience, right? So with social, social can open a lot of doors for you, but if you don't have the right resources, it just becomes harder to manage, harder to see results, harder to feel good about what you're doing on it. So if you know that you have limited resources, and you know that your audience is most active on Twitter, spend your time there. Maybe claim profiles and occasionally have a regular cadence for occasionally posting on other places, but put your time and efforts to where your audience is. And then the next phase of that is if you can get a good cadence of that going and maybe build resources over time is look to where your audience will be. As I mentioned earlier, or one of the things that I always think about is who is my next audience, right? Because people grow up in their careers. So the people who are decision makers now are maybe not big Instagram users, but the people who are in their 20s and 30s who have been will eventually be a decision maker, and it's a platform they're used to using and seeing. So you can't ignore it forever. But think about when you need to start kind of getting in front of them. That's why it's more important to have a regular cadence, even if it's only occasional, kind of be in front of those others. But it's a much better strategic approach to find where your audience is and put your time and effort there, rather than trying to separate your time across every single platform, because it's just going to fall a little bit flat for you. It's harder to see results if it's not overwhelmingly good. And that's usually what happens. When you have limited resources, you do the best you can, but it's not great. It's just the best that you can possibly do. And that can hurt, which is a weird thing to think about, but it can hurt if it's not great for social. Because there's so much that's happening that your stuff has to stand out. When I say great, I don't mean the highest quality videos or the highest graphics. It's just great content that is really well tailored for your audience. That's the great that you're looking for. All of the other details of how you execute only matters to what your audience wants from you.
Yeah.
So if they just want cat GIFs all day, give them cat GIFs if that can get them to engage with you and do it. It doesn't have to be highly produced content. It just has to be really well tailored for your audience. And
so great answer. And that leads me into my next question, which is the biggest mistake that companies are making in social media today. And I think, you've just been alluding around what some of those are.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is they're not tailoring to their audience, right? They're on social because they feel like they need to be on social, and they've been told they need to be on social. Someone in the exec team's we must have a TikTok out of nowhere because they've heard of TikTok. And what happens is that if you can't tailor that content to your audience, it just doesn't work. You can make videos all day, but if your audience doesn't actually want videos, they prefer you to write copy, you're missing out. And that's what I see most happening, is that a lot of brands want to do whatever is new rather than focusing on what their audience wants and giving it to them, and then testing. You should always do small scale tests along the way to see, because again, your audience will change over time. But it's really that going all in or doing something that your audience doesn't care about and not listening to your audience. I think listening is a really big part of tailoring for your audience. So the two have to go together. If you don't have a really good way to listen to your audience, you're never going to be able to tailor for them and give them what they want in the end.
So bonus question then, how do you listen to your audience? Because obviously from this conversation, that's a really critical part of being successful in social media. So how do you do it well right now?
Yeah, so it's a combination of some tools that are useful, but you're never going to replace manpower. Having a team that has the ability to skim but it's a thoughtful skim. To see trends that are happening, to know how to look, to know how to get around the algorithms, right? So like every personal account, you've got curated content really coming out because it's who you follow. So you want someone on your team who knows how to get around that by having like a backup account where it's a little more neutral, or at least is working on a lot of different things, or has a wide interest in things, because they're going to see more of the conversation. Because when you listen, you're not just listening for mentions of your name, like your brand's name. You need to listen to like what is being talked about, period. So there's some like really great tools out there that can help with that. But even those tools, you put in search terms for things, or you let it pull in data, but you're never going to replace that human element of having someone who can really analyze what those conversations mean and what the impact could be.
Yeah, it sounds similar to what we see from an SEO standpoint, where it's like there's all these tools and you can put in keywords, but you have to be able to look at the data and say, okay, this is meaningful to me and that's not.
Right.
And so it's from social, it's the same way. It's like you can have the tools, but unless you can interpret and analyze what out of it, then you're not getting the full value for it.
Exactly. Like it doesn't matter how like expensive and fancy your tool is if you don't have a person who can interpret that for you. Like when someone invents the tool that can also spit out the insight in addition to the data points, like, man, that company is gonna really do well.
Yeah.
We don't have that yet. The best AI is just not there. It can't quite replace the human element, especially the human element where when you're working with a brand, it so well that the things that are going to matter, or you can kind of see what's on the horizon, right? So I've been able to look at data and say like, okay, here's what we have to deal with now, but this issue over here in the corner is actually going to become a thing probably soon. Let's get our ducks in a row. Let's figure out what we want to do about it, because that thing is small now, but you can see the trend over time with the momentum where the data point is showing me that there's a trend, but it doesn't show me that it's actually meaningful for my brand.
Awesome. Amanda, this has been fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. We really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much. This was fun.